Hello, everyone. I am Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby. I am very excited because with me is Reed Birney, star of the new film Mass. And Reed, the you're part of a quartet of really strong performances in this film. When you describe the film to people, it sounds like a very, very heavy, emotionally fraught experience. But I'm curious, when it was described to you, what was it about this character and this story that made you say yes and want to get involved?
Well, I've known Fran for about 10 years in New York as an actor and around town, around the campus. And he sent me an email in October of 18 saying, I've written this thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's any good. It might be, who knows, but I'd be really flattered if you read it. And I read it that night and was bowled over. It was a play at that point. It had been a screenplay and then became a play for about a year and then went back to being a screenplay. I couldn't believe it. He'd never written anything before. And first of all, I'd never seen anything that talked about grieving the way this movie does. And I thought the character of Richard, my character, was completely heartbreaking because he was a man who is unable to really look at his feelings. And so he is condemned to a life of despair and guilt and shame from the actions of his son. I'm a WASP, and I think Richard, therefore, is a WASP. And the WASP culture, as we know, tends to not explore or reveal feelings the way maybe some other cultures do. Culture, would that be right? But anyway, so I know these guys. I know Richard, and it's his worst nightmare on every level, and he's condemned to live in this hell for the rest of his life, but not learn from it.
Yeah, he is seemingly the most closed off, I would
Oh,
say.
without question. I really think he's a tragic character, honestly, because he has this incredible opportunity in this meeting with the other family and his ex-wife to finally get some forgiveness and ask for some forgiveness, and he can't do it. He wants to hang on to any little shred of what his life was before the incident. And in doing that, he's really closed himself off. I think it's not an accident that he shows up in a coat and tie, which is, kind of the WASP armor.
Well, you mentioned his ex-wife, and I'm glad you said that because I wanted to talk a bit about the relationship that you and Ann Dowd create, because so much of it is unsaid. It's between the lines, which is really great to watch. How did the both of you sort of come up with your dynamic
Well,
together?
we realized only recently in giving an interview that we had never once talked about what happened to the marriage. It was just so clear from Fran's script that they hadn't survived. It's not a surprise at all to me that they hadn't survived. I think that when something like that happens, you really have to work hard to stay in a relationship together. And if you shut down in any way, which Richard clearly has, you're doomed, I think.
Yeah.
So we didn't really talk about it. We just knew it had ended.
Hmm. And did it's a meeting of these two sets of parents. Did you have any kind of research process where you discovered that this is something that has, happened in these very tragic situations, or what was the kind of
The,
research?
the only research I did, Sam, was I read Adam Lanza's father's essay on his son and what happened at Newtown. And it was a beautiful and heartbreaking essay and was illuminating into how a father feels. It's funny, you don't really think of the father as much as you think of the mother of these guys. And yet he was as blindsided and devastated as the mother was. I think he and his wife had already split up, so their divorce wasn't the result but certainly he wonders whether the divorce contributed to Adam's problems. But other than that, I really found everything I needed in Fran's beautiful script. When these things happen, when we hear about school shootings or when I have heard about them, almost the first thing I think is, how are those families going to survive? How do they do it? To us, it feels almost inconceivable. And I was grateful for the opportunity as an actor to go to a place where I could try and imagine it. I'm lucky that I haven't had to live it, and I think we've all felt a real responsibility to honor the people that have lived it. But at the end of the day, I could go home and not be that guy.
Yeah. What I kept thinking, you used the word inconceivable. It felt impossible. It feels like that these four people are in the most impossible situation imaginable.
Yes.
And as an actor, did you sort of come up against like things you had never played before?
Well, I've played a lot of uptight wasps, certainly. But what I found thrilling about it was that we were playing ordinary people in truly extraordinary circumstances. And that's always a great gift as an actor, to be able to explore that. I think that if there's a takeaway from the movie, and it's that when you want to, you can heal. When you want to, it requires enormous courage. But these people didn't have any other option. They had to find themselves in that room in order to move forward with their lives. And it was, the whole thing was a gift to work with Martha Plimpton and Jason Isaacs and Ann Dowd and Fran, who is a wonderful, wonderful actor himself. And, once I read this screenplay, I thought, well, he knows what he's doing, so I don't worry about him as a director for a second. It was the kind of thing that as an actor, I've waited my whole life for.
Yeah. There's frequently, I think maybe all four of the actors mention it, and at one point that like the son has destroyed all of their lives, which is a pretty remarkable thing to admit as a parent, I imagine. So when you're working on stuff that is that heavy of an emotion, that dark of an emotion, and working in piecemeal, does that come home with you? Like, how do you have to decompress after filming?
Well, I'm happy and a little embarrassed to confess to you that we laughed our heads off all day long between
well, that sounds
takes.
Better. So
it was, no, this in the room filming it, we had 8 days to film around the table, which doesn't seem like very much. We shot about 10 pages a day. It was very focused. It wasn't sad. It just was actors at work. And we knew we had a huge task, and it was thrilling to be in such an intense creative situation. But as soon as Fran yelled cut, more times than not, we would start misbehaving and cutting up and joking. And I think we were all startled by it because we thought, oh, are we being disrespectful to the circumstance? And I don't think we were. I think it was absolutely essential to get us through.
Yeah. You mentioned before that it started out as a play in its lifespan, and some of it feels that way, probably because it's mostly in one room.
Yeah, 4 people in a room.
Yeah. Was the filming process, did it feel like a play in the creation of it while you were working on it?
It felt like a play in that it was us all the time working together. And we also filmed it chronologically. Once we got in the room, we started at the beginning, hi, how are you? And then film 10 pages. And then we would pick up the next day, we'd go back a page to sort of get in the groove and then film another 10 pages. Also, all 4 of us are theater actors. So we have a vocabulary about that. But the reason it wasn't a play at the end of the day, Sam, is that Corey Mott, our producer, said to Fran, it's too intimate for a play. If we were on stage, we'd have to project our voices to the back of the house, and you couldn't have the four of us just sitting at the table for as long as we do in the movie, because somebody's back would be to the audience, and you'd have to find fake ways to have us get up and walk around. And Fran really was incredibly adamant that we stay at the table. There was no reason to get up from the table, and with our feet to the fire. Mm-hmm. So in a funny way, as simple a setting as it is, and as theatrical as it seems, it's really a movie.
Yeah. And I would imagine, especially for your character, would be difficult on stage, because you are probably the one person who doesn't get the big outbreak.
I don't get a big breakdown. Yeah. And I also, I am, for lack of a better word, the villain in the movie. And I sort of, because I'm so rigid and resistant, it sort of feeds those guys, and they get big breakdowns. But I don't get a big breakdown, but that's Richard. It would have been inappropriate for me to make him anything other than that. And as I say, I find his repression heartbreaking. So I have my own sort of cathartic character release in that, in his absolute insistence of staying in his head.
Yeah. The play, an element of it made me think of your career, because so much of it, there's a point where they're talking about how as parents, you didn't truly know your son. There was a piece you didn't know, and you actually have performed on stage with your son.
I have.
Chester Bailey.
Yes.
At stage. And
yes.
What was that? I'm just curious what that experience was like. It seems incredibly unique for
especially because it was a 2-character play, so it was just Ephraim and me. It was thrilling, Sam, honestly. Ephraim is a fantastic actor. He mopped up the floor with me, and I think we were both nervous going into it about what would this be like to be colleagues in the room. And I'm his dad, and we weren't playing dad and son, so we didn't have that to worry about. And it took about a day to get past the father-son thing, and we just became 2 actors in a room, and it was really fun. It was really fun. It was so thrilling for me to see how beautiful he is in the play, and we're hoping to get it into New York.
Yeah, well, we'll be waiting for it.
Oh, that's nice. I would love for you to see it. Yeah. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous play, and it's the saddest play I've ever done, and it's devastating. You think Mass is sad?
Just wait. Well, we can deal with sad. We're used to that.
Yeah, sad is good. You have, get a good cry. Everybody likes a good cry.
Yeah. Well, speaking of New York theater, the interesting thing that's happened, you won a Tony for The Humans, yes, which was a marvelous performance, which is now, as luck would have it, the movie version's coming out the same year with Richard Jenkins in the role you originated. Do you have plans to watch that? Is that a bizarre thing to see a character you play?
Well, it's only happened to me one other time. No, 2 other times. Gemini, they made a very bad movie out of, and David Marshall Grant played my part. And I don't know that I've ever actually seen that all the way through. And then Bug, I did Bug, Tracy Letts Play, and Brian F. O'Byrne played my part, if I'm remembering correctly. And I didn't see that either. So I probably won't see The Humans. If that's a trend, I probably won't.
Well, I think it's good to hold on to those memories. What was it like? Because you had been nominated before for the Tony, and then you finally won for a really great role. Did you notice what was the change after that for your career?
Well, I think, it's interesting. I think it gave me a sort of validation that I had perhaps always been looking for. I noticed that I was more relaxed and maybe confident after that, that maybe I didn't feel like I had so much to prove, which I think is an interesting thing. It happened really late. The fantasy was that that would happen in my 20s or 30s, and it happened in my 60s. But better late than never, for sure. And as somebody said, and it's not a new thought, but somebody said to me right afterwards, your tombstone will say Tony Award winner. You will always be Tony Award winner before your name. So it does make a difference. And I think I didn't notice a big change in the career right away. I got to do 1984 on Broadway after that. And I got, my name up in lights, and that was a really nice feeling. But it took a couple of years for me to really sort of feel the impact of like, oh, maybe things are shifting because of the Tony Award.
Yeah. Well, back to Mass for a minute before I have to let you go. The movie was really, really well embraced at Sundance. It got across the board reviews, and people have really been gravitating towards and latching onto these 4 performances, I think, in a big way.
It's really thrilling.
Yeah. What is it like seeing the reaction to this film?
It's incredibly gratifying, Sam, because we made this movie for no money in November of 19 before the world ended, and it was an incredibly exciting thing for us. We as actors all knew that this was going to be very good for us as actors. It's going to be the kind of challenge that we dream about having. I don't think we ever in a million years thought that it would turn into something like it has. We knew while we were filming it that it was pretty special. We felt great, but what are the odds? It was a little movie from a first-time director, writer. We could have very easily vanished forever. Certainly, I've done lots of movies that have vanished forever. Nobody's ever seen. So it's kind of miraculous and thrilling, honestly. And I'm so happy for Fran and his amazing screenplay and direction that people are, because we knew it was great, but it's great to see that it's landing. You know what I mean? That people are getting it the way we wanted them to.
Yes. Well, it's a very special movie and fantastic job in it. It's really unlike anything that I've probably ever seen before. So fantastic job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me, and everyone who's watching, make sure you subscribe to Gold Derby and keep in touch with us throughout the season. And Reed, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sam. See you in the city.